Like, if you're going to sit over there and be afraid and worried, man, just get out of real estate.
If you go look at my profile, I'm not posting crap about any of this stuff.
Dude,
you know why? Because it's literally bringing it up to a bunch of people that didn't know anything was going on.
So Chris, top producing agent, man, always kicking butt. You run a top 10 team here in Tennessee as well. NAR lawsuit, man, buyer rep agreements. How do you feel about that? Like, does from your personal production perspective, is anything going to change for you?
Honestly, I'll probably be double any more deals than I do currently, which I do quite a few. But I've done really well in getting to the point where I've got a lot of listings. I'm probably 75% listing side compared to 25%.
So you're saying you're going to focus even more on listings?
Not necessarily, because a lot of my buy side has a listing on the other side, right? They gotta sell to buy.
Yeah.
So many people are looking at this and they try to say, I'm only a listing agent. I'm only a buyer's agent. I'm like, if you're only doing one thing, you're only going to make so much money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. That's how I think. So I'm not only anything.
All your buyers are your next listing.
Right. I'm only doing whatever I got to do to make a living. So from there, that's the way I look at it. I'm only sending out as many referrals as I can.
So you can get that next pool.
I'm only trying to build a business here.
Yeah.
So from there, I mean, usually in the past, the agents that only worked with buyers, not everyone, but the agents that only worked with buyers were usually only working with buyers because they were scared of the listings.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are scared of listing size. They're not comfortable listing. They're not comfortable having those conversations.
Yeah, listing appointments, terrified.
Which is kind of funny because it's not necessarily harder to list homes and sell homes than it is to work on the buyer side. The buyer side can be very gruesome, and it's a lot of showings. It's a lot of work. But in my opinion, the best agents know how to do both sides very well.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand both sides. To be a good listing agent, you need to have a great understanding of what it's like working with buyers, getting them under contract, what it takes for that buyer to actually qualify for a loan, what it takes for them to actually be able to afford to buy the seller's house.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, by the way, that you made.
So many
if
people
you don't know the
background.
buy side, you're going to make mistakes as a listing agent. Your marketing won't be as good because you don't understand your target audience. Your target audience isn't listing agents, it's buyers. And if you don't know buyers, you don't know how to market to them.
And if you don't understand, like when your seller gets an offer and the buyer's asking for $10,000 worth of closing costs, and your seller's like, oh no, I've got to pay $10,000 worth of closing costs. I don't want to do that. And it's the only offer you have, and you've been listed for 2 months. Guess what, seller? If you want your buyer to be able to afford to purchase this home, they need help with the closing cost up front. And so many sellers don't understand that. And there's some listing agents that don't get it.
Yeah.
I'll be on the buy side, and they're like, well, my sellers don't want to cover that. And I'm like, well, your sellers probably don't want to sell the house then either. So you got to have this conversation that there's no winner and that there's no loser. A good contract has two winners.
Yeah.
A seller and a buyer on both sides that get to the finish line and are happy at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's where we have to be. So, I mean, I just had a contract that was written over asking, right? The buyers were trying to get their closing cost financed, so they wrote it over asking.
Right.
Of course, it came under because the property appraised at right at my list price because I priced it accordingly. Right, I priced it perfectly, right at the peak of where I thought it could go. I got it, actually got over, but we ended up, my sellers ended up having to come up with $9,000 worth of closing costs. I already had the conversation before we ever accepted the contract. I said, look, this house is not going to appraise for this purchase price, and we're going to have to come down a little bit, and we're going to have to negotiate on closing costs. They weren't surprised
because
we had already had the conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So I already told them to expect it. So there was no shock because I know what happens on both sides of the spectrum and I can plan for it. And most of the time I'm right. Not always. I can say, look, I am happily proven wrong.
Happily proven wrong.
Happily proven wrong. That's great. Now we can pivot and shift because I was wrong. That's okay. Let's go ahead and work through this. But most of the time, I'm gonna get it right.
So let's go back to buyer's rep agreement because I want to know where you. No, that's good stuff. But I want to know. Okay, so when did you used to have someone sign a buyer's rep agreement versus now? When are you going to have them sign a buyer's rep agreement?
This is the way I always looked at buyer's agreements before. You're trying to lock somebody into something that you've never worked with, you've never even met them before half the time, and you're trying to figure out, hey, do you want to work with them? And do they want to work with you? Because I don't want to work with every buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we might not be a good fit.
Yeah.
They might be looking in the wrong area. They might be looking at too broad of an area. They might just have a very harsh personality and expect things that I'm unable to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what their expectations are all the time until we really get to know them, because the buyer is not just going to come out and tell you, hey, I'm difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Right? Some of them will. Some will be like, look, I'm a little picky. Just want to go ahead and let you know. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Thanks for warning me.
Picky. Thanks for giving me a heads up. Let's go ahead and figure some of these things out. But not every buyer has purchased a home before and knows how they're going to be. And not every buyer has worked with an agent or has an understanding of what that's going to look like.
So when you would do the buyer's rep agreement, would it be more of when you submit an offer then? That's a very common way.
More of when I'm submitting an offer. That's what I always used to do on that side of things, because it was very transparent with the MLS with
absolutely
what a buyer agent was going to be. It was very transparent.
Right. They're taking a risk by potentially working with an agent that they don't know, they don't trust yet, right? There's a lot with that. And you're taking a risk of saying, I might show them a few houses and they may bail on me, right?
And they might bail.
And so both sides, I think it's fair to say they're taking a risk. So now that you can't just go show houses without a buyer's rep, where are you bringing that? Where are you bringing that up in your business now, in that relationship?
So I've got till August 17th to change what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm not currently implementing anything different than what I've been doing before.
Yeah, fair.
It's not
time yet.
Today's August 1st. I still got 16 days.
Yeah.
So, and I'm good at pivoting and shifting really quickly with whatever I have to do. But with that said, it's going to depend on that particular buyer and where they came from.
Mm.
Right. So to give a one slate answer based on anything it's kind of dumb. Right. But if I've got somebody that's friends with me, or they come from my sphere and they obviously already want to work with me, they're reaching out because they want to work with me.
So the trust is already kind of there.
The trust is already there. Sure. I'll go ahead. I'll say, hey, look, in order for me to work with you, I've got to have this buyer's rep agreement on file. Let's go ahead and go over that.
Okay.
Right. So from there, I can go over that, get that.
So how about your Facebook marketplace? Because I know that's a big strategy that you use.
Which is going to be different from a lead I picked up off Facebook Marketplace or a group or whatever else. So as I'm talking to them, that conversation is going to be very different. Hey, are you working with an agent? No, I'm not working with an agent. Go ahead, start working through a few things. Great. Let me get you set up on auto search, send you a few properties, start to warm them up, try to figure out once they're ready to get, and if they can get qualified, and if they want to go see a house.
Okay.
Right. So I have the option of going ahead and trying to do a buyer's rep agreement before we ever get to the house, which is going to increase the rate at which they don't show up and doesn't convert to an actual showing. Or I can have paper copies of those documents ready to go on file. When I get to the house, we can fill it out in the driveway and say, hey, before I can enter this house with you, I've got to have a buyer's rep agreement on file. It is unfortunately a state and federal law now that I have to have this. So let's go ahead, let's navigate this. And we got a couple different things. Let's go ahead and discuss this really quick. Go over it. Just need to sign this with you here before we can enter the house. So this doesn't have to be a forever contract. There's a couple different ways we can navigate.
So you're willing to work with them again on kind of like a temporary trust basis of.
It could be a one-day. It could be a one-day showing agreement. If you want to buy this house, great. We're going to work together. Let's go ahead and get this document filled out. I'm not going to lock you into some kind of crazy long contract to where you feel stuck, because I've been in that situation where I was locked into a contract whenever I was buying my first house and I felt stuck, and that agent really didn't provide any value to us. It was really like,
you know what I'm curious about if this happens. So procuring cause, I wonder how that's going to look, and carryover clauses for agents listening, so procuring costs, that means that like if Chris turns around and shows me a house and then I don't buy it that day, but then I go and buy it on my own, Chris was still the
so it's going to
procuring
depend
cost.
on the carryover clause, right? So depend on what that looks like. But what's interesting about a procuring cause is there's nothing, unless that buyer tells you, hey, I'm under contract to buy this house with another agent, like under a buyer's rep to buy this house with another agent specifically, and you go ahead and route around that without knowing that, the buyer is really the one at risk for, in my opinion, is the one at risk for having to pay that commission.
Two commissions.
Yeah. It should not be the other agent that sold a house unknowingly. Now, knowingly is different than unknowingly. If they unknowingly sell the house to that buyer, then you have a procuring cause. And so it's just kind of dependent on what's known. And that's going to be hard to prove in a court of law. Yeah. And probably most of the time not really worth going after.
Probably never. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody in the history of real estate who was like, it was worth taking my buyer. I mean, okay, maybe if there was someone who had like a $15 million property that they, Ryan Sherhant, but I bet you even Ryan Sherhant wouldn't take someone to court. His reputation is too important.
Moving on.
Yeah, I bet you Ryan, because you obviously listen to my podcast. Ryan, tell us, did you ever take someone to court over commissions? I'm curious. Okay, so that makes sense. And I'm with you on that. I think that there's just going to be a lot of trust that happens, and you have to display that value, and you have to go in, you have to follow the rules. Even if I think the rules are bogus, I think it's literally only applies to real estate, and all the other industries out there do not have to follow the same rules as real estate agents, which is absurd. But you know what I'm also curious about is like new construction. So the listing agent sitting there, it's not open houses. A listing agent absolutely does private showing. Someone walks in, and I've sold a lot of new construction, so I know this to be true. Someone walks in, says, hey, I'm interested in your community, in this floor plan. The listing agent goes and gives them a private tour if they don't have their agent with them.
So from there, all I would do from a new construction perspective, the way around that is all office hours are considered open house, and you would keep an open house sign at all times, and you're good. Right?
And I think that's actually fair to say, because if there is an agent on duty, the houses are open and ready to be shown.
Houses are open, correct. So the houses are open if the agents are on duty. Now, if it's not truly sitting there as an open house, it's going to be completely.
But then,
setup.
What's to stop listing agents in residential real estate saying, if the house is on the market, it's an open house? Because you still have to get permission to go into a house, even if it's an open house. You still have to follow rules.
There's a stark difference, though, in showing your own listing to an unrepresented buyer versus showing a buyer a house that you're not listing.
Okay.
So I have not seen any information at all that has stated that I need a buyer's rep agreement to show an unrepresented buyer my listing, because I'm showing.
That's fair.
I'm showing them my listing.
Yeah.
They are unrepresented still at that point. There is nothing stopping me from showing an unrepresented buyer. If I want to represent them, that is completely different. But I can open the door, represent my sellers that I do have an active contract to represent my sellers.
That makes sense.
Part of representing my sellers is showing that unrepresented buyer the home.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I'm repping the buyers. I can still open the door and show them that home.
Yeah. And for everybody listening,
there's nothing that's going to be able to stop me from that.
Talk to your broker. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, most of the brokers at all the brokerages, I talk to a lot of them. I have thousands of agents and brokers in my CRM, and I'm very good. Chris knows this. I'm good at follow up with them. And a lot of them have no clue what they're supposed to be doing either. So guys, just be very careful. Constantly check in with your broker when you're going to do something if you're unsure. Just again, like encouraging agents, like do what you can to protect yourself. Don't show a home to a buyer without that proof that you have that buyer's rep agreement, even if it's for a day, even if it's for a single home. Protect yourself. If you're a listing agent, check in with your broker and do it physically, meaning with an email and a text message. Hey, listen, right? Chris is my broker, let's say. Hey, Chris, I'm buyer's coming in. They're asking me, they're unrepresented. I'm going to show them the house. Let me know if there's anything I need to do to make sure this is compliant. Because what that's doing is it's showing a path of intention. You're trying to do the right thing. You just don't know what it is. And your broker is supposed to be the one who does know. But the problem is the people teaching the brokers, NAR, the lawyers, they don't know what these nuances is. They don't know what's right. So you want a paper trail. So just make sure, guys, you have a paper trail with anything that you're doing now. And honestly, you know me, Chris. I've been saying that for so long. Have a paper trail to prove your intention.
So let's have the same exact conversation, right? Because all we're doing is looking for a way to serve our sellers at the highest level. It's not about me.
Right.
I'm looking at the way to make sure that the unrepresented buyers get to see my seller's house.
Mm-hmm.
And those unrepresented buyers a lot of times aren't willing to sign a buyer's.
You have a fiduciary duty.
Right. I have a fiduciary duty to serve my seller at the highest level. Mm-hmm. That includes getting that buyer in there and showing them that house.
It actually says that, I don't know if it's nationally, but on the state exam for your license in Tennessee, it actually shows you when it talks about the listing agent portion, because it talks about buyer's agents and listing agents, that listing agents may show houses to unrepresented buyers, because as a listing agent, your job is to get the home sold.
Right. You got it.
It doesn't say you have to sell it to a buyer's agent client. You sell it to the buyer, whoever that is. And
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yep. And that does set you up showing unrepresented buyers for, you can argue procuring calls, whatever, for that buyer to call their cousin that's a real estate agent to write up that contract. But at the end of the day, if you're doing your job as a listing agent, you're showing the house. That's what so many agents have gotten away from as well, is that fiduciary duty for their sellers.
I'd say a lot of agents have forgotten.
A lot of agents unwilling to do that.
They want to coast on these listings. They don't market. They don't run ads. They don't put marketplace. They don't put them in groups. Some of them don't even get professional photos. They don't show the home if a buyer wants to see it and the buyer's agent can't make it. At the end of the day, it's like, yeah, sure, I would agree. The buyer agent needs to earn their commission.
Buyer's agent needs to do it.
But here's the thing. Right. And here's the thing, right? That's actually, especially now more than ever, that's between the buyer and the buyer's agent. At the end of the day, as a listing agent, I need to get this home sold. And if someone is ready to buy it, I'm going to meet with them. I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to do my job and earn my commission.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, any final notes for anybody listening who's nervous about the buyer agency, rep agreement changes and commissions and things like that? Any words of encouragement or advice? So
the only other way that I can think of around that is to either host an open house for your own listing. So if somebody wants to see it and they're unrepresented, schedule an open house for an hour. Go show them, and maybe somebody else shows up too. Just tell them, hey, look, if you're unable to sign a buyer's rep agreement, I have got to schedule an open house in order to do this showing, and I've got to have it not only available to you, I've got to have it available to other buyers.
Right, a true open house. Just for everybody listening, he's saying a real open house.
Open house. Hey, look, I've got to schedule this. I'm willing to schedule it. If you're only available at noon on a Thursday, great. We'll do noon to 1 on a Thursday. I'll go ahead. We'll have it open. I'm going to host this thing open for an hour. You're going to be able to come, but other people are able to come as well.
Right. This is not an exclusive private showing.
Not an exclusive private showing. If you need a way around it, you can either ask the listing agent, especially if it's vacant, ask the listing agent, hey, can I host an open house for your house for you on Thursday from 12 to 2? And then go ahead and get that thing scheduled. Or go ahead and schedule it. If it's vacant, by all means. So, I mean, I've heard of people doing wasn't there a guy that did an open house every day for like 100 days?
Yeah.
And closed a ton of contracts from it?
Yeah. He had to stop doing open houses because he got too much business.
Too busy to do it. Yeah. Too busy to open houses. Got too much business. Exactly. So the people that are willing to put in the work and just figure it out, like there are ways to make sure that the people that you want to get into homes can do so, even if they're unwilling to sign a buyer's rep agreement. That's great. Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing for your advice is, guys, figure out what you can do to
and do it.
earn it and then do it, right? If you go to your broker and say, listen, I got a client who does not want to sign a buyer's rep agreement. Can I go and do an open house Thursday, 12 to 1? And it will be a true open house. Anybody can show up. You know, you can even cross your T's and dot your I's, post it on Facebook. You know, be legitimate, guys. Be legitimate. It's not worth losing your license and going to court over a single buyer. Don't do it. So, but know what you can do and do it. And don't be afraid of those single day buyer's rep agreements. Don't be afraid of them.
Single day buyer's rep agreements, open houses, but the open house, so that one buyer showing that may or may never buy that house, who knows, could turn into marketing power for you for the open house. And now you're getting it all out.
Yeah, there. Why not do an open house? At the end of the day, I think open houses, this is my prediction, I think open houses are going to become extremely popular and important because there's buyers now more than ever do not trust agents because that is what the lawyers have told them. Do not trust real estate agents. They're all here to scam you. So the last thing they're going to want to do, especially new buyers or buyers who have had bad experiences, they're going to be like, yeah, there's no way I'm signing paperwork. No way, because agents are bad. Agents are bad and they're out to get me. And so you have to build that trust, like we've talked about many times, and then work with them, right? Hey, don't worry about it. This is what we can do instead. Problem solve. So I love that. I think that's some good advice, man. It sounds like you're not too worried about it, which is good. I think it's your job to be confident. It's your job to figure it out. Like if you're going to sit over there and be afraid and worried, man, just get out of real estate.
That's one thing that I've also found. I'm glad you brought that up about being worried about things. So I see a lot of people post on social media, and in my opinion, so many of them air out way too many things. They air out all of their frustrations with the market. I see them all posting about, on August 17th, you're going to need a buyer's rep agreement. Commissions have always been negotiable. If you go look at my profile, I'm not posting crap about any of this stuff. Dude, you know why? Because it's literally bringing it up to a bunch of people that didn't know anything was going on, and now they do know things were going on because you guys are telling them things were going on.
And you're doing it in a hostile way. Like, I couldn't even imagine if my dentist went and posted like real estate agents post about the lawsuits. Literally, basically, agents are out there like, hey, buyers, you can't be crappy people anymore. And like, even if I am a crappy person, who are you to tell me? Who are you? Like, let's just be real. If my dentist was like, by the way, all my idiot clients who tried to get out of paying me money, you can't do that anymore. And I'm like, well, good news for you, buddy, because I'm not going to work with you anymore. Like, you're definitely not going to be someone I'm going to even consider anymore.
Yeah, it's funky, man. Like,
yeah.
And even the people that just post their struggles online constantly, like inability to work through and process through different things that they're going through in life.
Yeah.
You're portraying all of that to your audience. And if your real estate business is not taking off, it's because you're telling everybody that you can't handle life's things that's getting thrown at you. And that you're struggling with it. And that directly relates into their inability to trust you to take care of their problems.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or like, do you know those viral posts that go around where they're like, next time you ask what an agent does, and then you show all the taxes and fees. Here's the thing. No one cares who we have to pay. No one. When I pay my CPA to do his job, I don't want to hear about, well, Rob, just so you know, I have this person over here and this person over here and this tax and this. I don't care, dude. It's your job. Either charge me more and provide the value to make it worth it, or don't do this job because clearly you can't handle it. Right. And so when I see a real estate agent who's like, just so you know, buyers, here's all the things I do to be worthy of money. All I'm hearing is you're not worth it. You don't charge enough. Okay. You don't communicate enough. And you're insecure to have a real conversation with your clients about your value. So you got to go passive aggressively, put it on Facebook because you can't talk to them directly.
I also don't post all that stuff.
It's garbage. And I've seen really smart agents do that too, and that shows me that they're insecure about talking about this, because that's like and we all do this, and that's the point, right? It's like when a husband and wife are fighting, and then one of them goes on Facebook and is like, it's just so hard in life when someone won't listen to you, the person you trust the most. Gee, I wonder who they're talking about. And you're like, that's weird. That's between you and them. It's a private conversation. If you're not making enough because your broker or whatever, go deal with it with your broker. Don't bring me into that as the buyer. What's your fee? What do I get for it? Simple as that. Dude, I love it. Thanks for making time. Thanks for being a top producer. Thanks for showing confidence, teaching agents, sharing with others. I think you're awesome, man. Agents, if you're not, you should go follow Chris Rains. Go copy what he does on social media. Do not copy all these other people whining, complaining, putting fear and doubt into the world. Go put confidence there. Chris, what's the best way someone can reach out to you and just copy what you're doing and learn from you?
Yep. So you can find me on Facebook. It's just Chris Rains, RAINS. My cell phone number is 865-684-3603. You can DM me, text me, call me. Pretty easy to get a hold of. I do actually answer my phone. Shock. So
Shock.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Reach out anytime. Happy to chat. Happy to help. And if you really want to take your business to another level, also happy to chat about that.
Love it.
And yeah.
Thanks, man, for being on. Appreciate you just sharing your insights.